begins with stillness. You lie in bed, your eyes closed, your breath slow and rhythmic. And somewhere between one heartbeat and the next, your mind begins to drift. Not outward but inward. Deeper than your thoughts, deeper than your skin, into the quiet geometry that holds you together. Your body is made of atoms, yes, but even those atoms are mostly space. If you shrink down far enough, past the bones and cells and molecules, you'll find yourself in a realm of delicate vibrations, flickers of energy, and spaces so vast they feel like emptiness. But aren't. You float there in that silence. And in that silence, something waits. A reflection. At the center of everything you are, protons, electrons, quarks, and gluons, there is a story of balance, of opposites. For every particle, a twin exists. A mirror image. Identical in mass, but opposite in charge. If the universe were a poem, then matter and antimatter would be two stanzas, each one echoing the other in perfect symmetry. A proton, spinning quietly in your fingertip, has an antimatter counterpart called the antiproton. It looks the same, spins the same, weighs the same. But where the proton is positive, the antiproton is negative. A mirror not of glass, but of charge. And the electron, that tiny spark dancing around the atom, too has a reflection, the positron, identical in every way, but carrying a positive charge instead of negative. You might expect the universe to treat these pairs equally, to fill space with both matter and antimatter, one to balance the other, yin and yang, darkness and light. But the universe didn't do that, chose a side. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe the choice was never a conscious one. Maybe it was chance or something deeper than chance. But here's the strange thing. When a particle of matter meets its mirror, they don't argue, they don't fight, they simply vanish. Not in a puff of smoke, but in a burst of energy, a pure note of light. They cancel each other out so perfectly that nothing is left but photons. No debris, no dust, no leftovers. Only energy. This process is called annihilation. But that word feels too harsh, doesn't it? Because in the stillness of that moment, matter meeting antimatter, there's a kind of peace. A reunion, not a destruction. A soft return to the energy from which everything began. You drift further inward, past the protons and electrons, into the possibility that maybe, just maybe, everything around you shouldn't even exist. Because if matter and antimatter were born in equal amounts, at the beginning of the universe, then they should have met, hugged their mirrored twins, and disappeared into light. But you're here. The pillow under your head, the air you breathe, the planet spinning beneath you, all of it made of matter, and almost none of it made of antimatter. It's as though the universe kept one stanza of its poem and tore the other one out. Why? You breathe in. The question feels larger than you, and yet, it also lives inside you. Because you are made of matter. You are what remained. This imbalance is not a small thing. It's the reason you can dream. The reason stars can burn. The reason the universe didn't vanish into a clean and perfect emptiness the moment it began. And yet, the antimatter isn't gone entirely. It still appears in flashes, brief moments, rare and precise, created by high-energy collisions in the atmosphere, or in the hearts of stars, or in quiet laboratories beneath the earth. There, for a fraction of a second, it exists, a positron here, an antiproton there, reminding us that the mirror still exists, still watching, still waiting. You float in that thought, is closed, the edges of your body blurred. You are a constellation of particles, each one humming with a subtle question. Why this and not the other? Why do you wake in a world of matter, when the universe could so easily have chosen the mirror? No answer comes, only the sense that there is a deeper story still to be told. A moment in time when matter and antimatter first opened their eyes and saw each other. You feel it now, the tension of that first glance, the closeness of those twin beginnings. soft electric moment, a whisper of annihilation, a narrow escape, and in the distance, a flicker of light, the memory of the first second. That's where you'll go next. You are floating now, not in space but in time, drifting backward through the folds of memory, through the quiet hum of molecules, through the heartbeat of your atoms. You pass galaxies unwinding like ribbons, stars shrinking to sparks, planets dissolving to dust, backwards through the long, slow unraveling of everything you've known. You go on until even darkness hasn't formed yet, until there is no space to hold you, no time to measure you, no up or down, just stillness, and then a breath, not air, not wind, but the first movement, the birth of time itself, the beginning. The Big Bang was not an explosion, not fire or roar, not debris scattered across silence. It was the birth of silence and sound together. It was everything everywhere all at once, unfolding. From that moment, the universe began to grow, stretching outward from something impossibly small to something vast enough for light to roam. And in that first flicker of becoming, particles were born. Quarks, the building blocks of protons and neutrons. Electrons, dancing freely, still untouched by atoms. Photons, the messengers of light. But they were not alone. For every particle born in that newborn fire, this mirror was born as well. An antiproton beside each proton. Positron beside each electron. Twin sparks. One matter, one antimatter. Brought into being in perfect symmetry. You hover in this incandescent soup, this radiant fog of newborn particles, where matter and antimatter drift toward each other, like lovers running toward an inevitable embrace. And when they meet, they vanish. Annihilation, but not death, only transformation, to become none. And from their vanishing, light is born. A photon flares into the cosmos, carrying the energy of that perfect cancellation. And this happened everywhere, in every direction, at every scale. For every breath of matter, a breath of antimatter. For every step forward, a step back. The universe pulsed with balance. And yet, something didn't cancel. Not completely. A whisper of imbalance. Out of every billion antimatter pairs, one particle of matter remained. Uncancelled, unmatched, unmirrored. It wasn't a war. There was no violence. Only a quiet preference. Cosmic tilt so slight, so subtle. It defies explanation. But it happened. You are floating in that moment now. The pause between near-complete annihilation and the birth of a future. Without that 1 in a billion asymmetry, the universe would have been left with only light. No stars, no planets, no you. The space around you glows faintly now, as though remembering. Photons from those early annihilations still drift through the cosmos. A soft echo of the fire that almost erased everything. We call it the cosmic microwave background. A gentle afterglow of the beginning. You can't feel it on your skin, but it surrounds you always. A cradle of warmth just above absolute zero. A relic from a time before atoms had names. And so here you are, suspended in the story of that nearly perfect symmetry, with your own existence balanced on the edge of what should have cancelled itself away. Why did matter win? Why did something remain? There are theories. You trace them now like threads through your fingers. Some physicists believe there were unknown particles, strange visitors that decayed unevenly, spitting out more matter than antimatter in the early seconds of time. Others wonder about forces we don't yet understand, forces that whispered to the particles and told them which direction to lean. Perhaps the laws of physics themselves are slightly biased. Perhaps, beneath all the elegance and symmetry, there is a small imperfection, flaw, or maybe a seed, one that bloomed into stars, galaxies. And the breath that moves gently through your nose now, you imagine it, a universe of light but no form, No gravity to shape galaxies. No atoms to hold hands and become life. Only radiance, unseen, untouchable. And then you return, back to your own body, your own presence in this strange and lucky world of matter. You are a part of that 1 in a billion imbalance, the quiet miracle. All that you love, all that you wonder, exists because something did not match. Because somewhere, in the middle of the universe's most perfect symmetry, a shadow stretched just slightly longer than its reflection. You breathe into that thought, softly, gratefully, because you are here, because the universe let something stay. And yet, question remains. If antimatter was nearly erased in that first second, why does it still appear now? Why does it return in flickers and flashes, as if trying to remind us of what could have been? There is more to see. You lie still, your body soft against the mattress, your hands resting quietly where they've always belonged, at the edge of thought, at the border between skin and sky. You bring your attention to your hand, to your fingertip, that smallest place, that smallest point where you meet the world. Feels solid, but it is mostly space. Atoms, billions of them, humming in silent patterns, each one a little solar system of sorts, a dense nucleus surrounded by dancing electrons. And in that fingertip, right now, something extraordinary may be happening. Spark, not of electricity, but of reversal. Positron, an antiparticle, a momentary visitor from the mirror side of nature. You don't feel it, leaves no trace. But for the briefest instant, your body plays host to something, not of your kind. Above you, in the high reaches of the sky, cosmic rays, high-energy particles from deep space, strike the upper atmosphere. They arrive from faraway places, distant galaxies, dying stars, the furious hearts of black holes. When these rays crash into atoms in the air, they set off a cascade, a shower of particles, raining downward unseen, toward the earth, toward you. In this invisible downpour, something remarkable is born. Antimatter, muons and pions and positrons, created not in laboratories, but in the sky. Some of these positrons survive the journey through the atmosphere. They pass through the leaves of trees, through rooftops, through bone and blood, and sometimes they pass through you. They enter you like a ghost might, softly, silently, without resistance. Inside your body, they travel only a short distance, perhaps a few millimeters, before meeting their match, an electron, and then, as always, they vanish. Annihilation, but not with violence, with light. Two opposites, perfect in their balance, become a flash, a gamma photon, a tiny note of energy that sings itself into the void. And you never notice. This happens dozens of times a day. Even now, as you lie still, listening to your breath, your body is not just matter. It is a crossroads, a place where the universe flows through, whispers through, and leaves traces of something other. You may never see a positron with your eyes, but your body knows them. Your atoms have felt them pass. You have hosted the mirror, briefly, gently, and then let it go. Sometimes, antimatter arises from inside you. Yes, inside. Certain elements in your body, like potassium-40, which lives in your muscles and bones, are naturally radioactive. They decay slowly, quietly, sending out tiny emissions over the years. And once in a while, that decay produces a positron from within. So not only does the cosmos send you antimatter, your own body makes it, not dangerously, not destructively, but as part of the natural hum of being alive. And yet, you remain made of matter. These little flashes, these annihilations, don't undo you. They don't threaten you. They remind you that the world is full of brief visitations, that even what seems like an opposite can pass through you with grace, Imagine your body, in this moment, as a cathedral of matter, cell a chamber, each atom a silent bell, and through this cathedral, a beam of light enters, a positron, a single note from the mirror, passes through the nave, reaches the altar, meets its twin, and together, they become light. And that light, invisible to your eyes, but not to the universe, travels on. Your body, in its stillness, has become a brief and sacred space for something so rare, so strange, oh quiet. Antimatter isn't distant. It isn't locked in faraway labs or buried deep in the math of particle physics. It's here, touching you and moving on. You have always lived in a world that makes room for such beauty, a world where opposites don't only collide, but also complete. You turn your attention to your breath again. The movement of life within a body that has danced, however briefly, with the shadow of itself. And now, as your body softens even more, as your thoughts begin to quiet, you wonder if antimatter touches us and even arises within us. What happens when we try to create it on purpose? Where do we go to summon the mirror? And what does it say? When we finally listen, you are still, more still than you've been all day. You feel the gravity of your body, but it's gentle now, a softness anchoring you to your bed. Your breath moves like tides in and out, in and out. And as the surface of the day falls away, you drift inward again, into the quietest corners of the cosmos. Here everything begins and ends in silence. Tonight you find yourself in a place where opposites meet. Not in conflict but in completion. Particle drifting softly through space. Its reflection, its inverse, drawn toward it like a whisper. They are not enemies. They are not at war. They are meant for each other. Created as twins from the moment time began. One is matter, the other antimatter. Proton and an antiproton. An electron and a positron. Two sides of the same equation, each waiting for the other to make it whole. And when they do, when they touch, they do not crash or shatter or bleed. They vanish. Completely. Effortlessly. Elegantly. You might expect destruction, some cataclysmic flare. But no. This vanishing is calm. It is the return to the beginning. It is what happens when opposites finally understand each other. And in that moment of disappearance, something is released. Like, not ordinary light but gamma light. Pure energy, unfurling from the place where two things once were. You float closer, not to observe with your eyes, but to feel with your presence. The subtle hum of transformation. It is as though the universe exhales. Annihilation. Sounds like an ending, but it's not. It's a shift. From form to formless. From mass to motion. From something to something else. The word annihilate carries weight. Sounds final. But this is a passage. No ashes, no remnants. Just light. Rushing outward. Soft as breath. Imagine two candles. Brought together. Their flames kissing. And then vanishing. But in place of darkness, a brighter warmth fills the room. This is what it feels like when a particle and its mirror reunite. The laws of physics do not mourn this meeting. They allow it. They celebrate it. They record the energy exchanged. But not the loss, because nothing is lost, only changed. You begin to see the beauty in this. The deep, underlying poetry of the universe, where nothing is wasted. Where even vanishing creates radiance. In your everyday world, things fall apart, leaves crumble, glass breaks, memories fade. We are taught to fear the end. But the cosmos has no such fear. Teaches us that disappearance can be beautiful, purposeful, even luminous. Somewhere in a distant lab, scientists trap antimatter in magnetic fields, holding it apart from its opposite just long enough to study it. They watch, in reverent silence, as opposites meet, and in that moment, flash, burst of light. Proof of the equation. Proof that balance, once restored, becomes brilliance. You feel this truth within you. That every loss leaves behind energy. That endings are not empty. Even in your own life. You've seen it. A goodbye that leaves behind wisdom. A heartbreak that illuminates strength. A silence that allows something deeper to speak. You realize now, this is not just science. It's a mirror held to existence itself. To the way the universe works. To the way you work. You are made of matter. And yet, in the course of your life, you've been touched by things that feel like they're opposite. Grief, letting go, change. They meet you gently, quietly, and something in you transforms. You emerge not empty, but glowing with new understanding. It's not so different from annihilation, is it? The collision of what is and what was, leaving behind what can be. Now you return to the place of particles, the dance of matter and antimatter, still echoing in the quiet fabric of reality. You imagine them, drawn together across a tiny, invisible space, spinning ever closer, knowing their time is brief. They meet, and in that perfect moment, they are no longer two. They are light, pure, directionless, weightless light, not noise, not fury, not chaos, silent flash, soft farewell. And now, you wonder, if this quiet miracle happens in distant labs, in the skies above, in the space between stars, could we harness it? Could we gather these flickers of brilliance and shape them into something more? What would it mean to hold that kind of energy, to tame it, to guide it? Could we one day build engines from annihilation? Could we ride this light into the unknown? The thought lingers, gently now, like the echo of a photon in the dark. The story should have ended before it began. You drift back to the first fractions of a second, when the universe is no more than a breath held tight, a cradle of energy shimmering with potential. Everywhere, particles and antiparticles are being born together, like twins linked by symmetry, identical in mass, opposite in charge. Matter and antimatter. They should cancel each other out. They almost do. You imagine it now. The grand dance of opposites. For every electron, a positron. For every quark, an antiquark. Perfectly matched. And when they meet, they do not clash. Not in the way you'd expect. No fury, no explosion. Just a quiet vanishing. A return to light. It is called annihilation. But it is not destruction. It is return. When matter and antimatter meet, they dissolve into pure energy. A kind of soft undoing, a luminous farewell. The early universe should have been filled with these final goodbyes. Everything should have cancelled out. No stars. No planets. No you. But something tilted the balance. You float there, in the hush between possibility and outcome, staring at this fundamental mystery. Why are you here at all? 'Cause you are. Somehow, impossibly, something tipped the scale. One extra speck of matter for every billion pairs. A small, rebellious residue that refused to be cancelled. That is all it took. That tiny excess, 1 in a billion, is the reason there are galaxies, oceans, breath, and time. The question lingers like a candle flickering in a still room. Why? You trace your fingers across the possibilities. Some physicists imagine a subtle asymmetry in the laws of nature, something known as CP violation. A tiny difference in how matter and antimatter behave, a preference whispered into the structure of reality. Not a loud declaration, just a soft nudge. Cosmic bias. You think of it as a coin flipped billions of times but not quite fair. A trick penny, always landing with a slight lean toward matter. A thumb, unseen, pressed ever so lightly on the scale. Was it baked into the fabric of the laws themselves? This quiet preference for matter? Or was it something stranger? Maybe there was a moment, a phase, a crack, a reshuffling in the universe's early code, when symmetry broke. Cosmic choice. Before that, perhaps, the universe held balance perfectly. Equal, mirrored, serene. And then something shivered. A fluctuation, perhaps. A ripple in time's first breath. And in that shiver, the symmetry cracked. What spills out is everything. You begin to see the asymmetry not as a flaw, but as a seed. Without it, nothing would remain. With it, the universe blooms. The stars are built on this tiny betrayal of balance. Life is the result of a quiet leaning toward matter, toward persistence. You run your hand along this idea like the edge of a seashell, smooth and spiraled. Isn't it beautiful? That all of this, you, the stars, the soft glow of galaxies drifting across time, exists only because of a slight imperfection, skewed scale. And yet, the cause remains unknown. You lie beside the mystery like a companion. Does not shout. Does not ask to be solved tonight. It only wants to be held. Some dreamers whisper that the universe we see is just one among many. That in other branches of possibility, the balance tilted the other way, toward antimatter or perfect symmetry, leaving nothing. But in this strand, in this version of what could be, matter won. Not by force, by luck perhaps, or law, or love. You don't know. But you are grateful for the imbalance. Because without it, there would be no atoms to cling together, no hydrogen to burn, no time to pass. You breathe in and let the breath out slowly. You are the result of a broken mirror, a leftover speck from a vanished twin. You imagine what the moment of difference might have looked like. A single extra particle, drifting through the early fire, while all its siblings vanished in flashes of light. Alone, it finds others like itself, the rare few that were spared. Together, they become the dust that makes galaxies. You float beside them now, watching this improbable gathering unfold. These rare survivors begin to form clouds. The clouds begin to collapse. Stars flare into life. Worlds gather around them like children listening to a story. From imbalance, order. From loss, creation. It is not a story of victory. Not in the way you're used to. It is not triumph over the other. There is no enemy here. Just a slight lean. A whisper in the dark. You think about balance differently now. Not as symmetry, but as tension, the kind that allows for structure. The kind that lets a bridge hold, or a tree grow tall against the pull of the earth. The kind that lets a universe exist. Still, the question floats with you. Why this tilt? Why this preference? The theories are many. Some suggest it was the decay of exotic particles early on. Others hint at hidden forces we haven't yet named. Maybe the laws themselves evolved from chaos, rules congealing from randomness, selecting outcomes not by reason but by resonance. Or maybe, and this thought makes you pause, maybe the universe had a kind of memory, a way of knowing even then, that it would one day hold watchers, witnesses. You lie with this thought curled beside you like a cat in the dark. It doesn't need to be true, only beautiful. Above you, the sky is now rich with consequence. Every star, every whisper of light, a result of that first tiny imbalance. That 1 in a billion excess of matter, stubborn and luminous. The silence that should have followed never came. Instead, the silence gave birth to music. The universe survived. Not by chance, perhaps, but by inclination. Leaning. A bias that turned nothing into everything. You close your eyes and float in that feeling of being made not from perfection, but from deviation. Not from certainty, but from residue. And in that residue, something noble. And yet, the mystery remains. What if the leftover matter was only half of the story? What if, in the vast reaches beyond what you can see, the mirror world still exists? What if antimatter didn't vanish completely, but went somewhere else? Separate, waiting, watching. A shadow universe. A reflection not yet understood. And if it's there, what would it look like? What would it feel like to drift into a cosmos made of mirrors? Would time flow the same? Would light still warm your skin? Would you recognize yourself in that inverted sea of symmetry? Or would everything be just a little off? You hold this question gently, letting it flicker like a distant lantern. Not to solve it, only to follow it. You stand at the threshold of a place where silence hums louder than sound. Not far beneath your feet, beneath layers of stone and steel, scientists bend reality in quiet chambers. You descend one soft step at a time into the hush of the earth's embrace, into a cathedral not built for worship, but for wondering. Here machines the size of cities coil like sleeping serpents. Caverns open like ancient lungs. Lights blink with patient rhythm. Air hangs heavy with electrons and expectation. In this sanctum of precision, something ancient and rare is being summoned. Antimatter. Not imagined, not myth, real but fleeting. Like a firefly in the dark. You watch as beams of particles are sent racing in circular tunnels, chasing each other at nearly the speed of light. Invisible dancers, guided by magnets so cold they're only a breath above absolute zero. The magnets don't hum. They sing in frequencies no ear can catch. But your bones feel it. A murmur at the edge of being. Then it happens. A particle, perhaps a proton, slams into its mirror twin. Energy erupts from the collision. And out of that energy, from the dust of pure existence, an opposite is born. An antiproton. Or maybe a positron, the antimatter echo of an electron. Teeny. Precious. Gone in less than a blink. Unless you trap it. Scientists here have learned to do just that. With fields gentler than touch, they corral these flickering ghosts inside magnetic cages. Held midair, the antiparticles dance, suspended, humming with potential, like soap bubbles that should never have formed in the first place. And then, just as gently, they are gone. Touch a wall. Breathe the wrong way. Let the antimatter meet matter, and poof. They vanish in a sigh of light and heat. A kiss that ends in mutual erasure. Annihilation, the scientists call it. But it doesn't feel like destruction. Feels like balance. Still, the question lingers. Why can we create antimatter at all, but find so little of it in the natural world? The early universe should have made matter and antimatter equally. Twin coins flipped in the same hand. For every particle, its equal opposite. Every spark mirrored. And if that had happened, if nature had followed its own rules perfectly, nothing would have survived. Everything would have cancelled. Silence. Emptiness. A dark, eternal equilibrium. But something tipped the scale. Something, just slightly, favored matter. 1,000,001 particles of matter to 1,000,000,000 particles of antimatter. The odds are almost laughably unfair. Yet here you are, walking in this world of atoms and light. The one extra in 1,000,000,000 is why stars shine, why oceans ripple, why minds can wonder. So these labs, these quiet wombs of experiment, become more than just spaces of science. They become temples of gratitude, shrines to the improbable. Here, by making antimatter, we glimpse what the universe could have been. A shadow universe, a ghost twin. Not evil, not wrong, just absent, just gone. Yet there's beauty in that absence. You follow the path of positrons through time. They are used in medicine now. In PET scans that peer gently into living tissue. Antimatter, helping us see inside ourselves. You marvel as physicists at CERN summon entire antiatoms. Antihydrogen, built piece by piece like a model ship in a bottle. And though it lasts only fractions of a second, it is real. It existed. For a moment, the mirror spoke back. You feel a strange stillness settle in your chest. A kind of reverence. Because to create something so rare, something the universe itself seems to have rejected, is not just clever. It is poetic. It is as though humanity is whispering to the cosmos. We remember what you could have been. You step through another corridor. The walls glow softly, bathed in blue safety light. Somewhere nearby, a new experiment is underway. Particles will be smashed. Ghosts will be caught. Tiny bits of nothingness will flare into being, then vanish into equations. But even as they disappear, they leave something behind. Not mass, not charge, not heat, but knowledge and mystery. Because antimatter is not just a substance. It is a question, still unanswered, still unfolding. A gentle defiance of symmetry. A riddle that glows, then fades. Why does the universe allow you to make antimatter, but not to keep it? What hidden law wrote this imbalance into the very code of time? You walk upward now, away from the humming halls, back toward open air. The weight of the earth lifts from your shoulders. Night greets you like an old friend. Above, stars shine, made of matter, not their mirrored twin. You look up and wonder, if the universe began in perfect balance, why did the mirror crack? And what might still be hiding on the other side of the glass? You walk through quiet hospital halls, the kind lit in soft whites and pale blues. The air smells faintly of antiseptic, and shoes whisper across clean tile floors. Somewhere nearby, machines hum softly behind closed doors, hidden but alive. You don't realize it yet, but in one of those rooms, a moment of cosmic magic is about to begin, and it begins with you. You lie down gently on a narrow table that slides into a glowing ring, the PET scanner. A positron emission tomography scan. The words sound long and sharp, but the experience is slow and still. You close your eyes as the ring of detectors surrounds your body. The machine is quiet, but behind that silence, a miracle is whispering. Before the scan, a nurse placed a small injection into your arm, a tracer they called it. A tiny amount of a substance that your body recognizes, attached to something utterly strange. A positron-emitting atom. That's antimatter. Yes, real antimatter. Right here. Right now. Inside you. The substance flows through your bloodstream like a message in a bottle, drifting through rivers of living tissue. It's designed to find a particular part of you. Perhaps your heart, perhaps a tumor, perhaps the quiet rhythm of your brain. Wherever it travels, it releases a spark. Positron. A positron is the antimatter sibling of the electron. Same mass, opposite charge. Like a shadow that's perfectly shaped but reversed. Not just dark, but opposite. And when a positron meets an electron, something astonishing happens. They annihilate. That word, annihilate, sounds violent, but here it's almost gentle. The positron and the electron don't explode. They vanish into light. Two photons are born, traveling in exactly opposite directions. Not smoke, not fragments, just pure light. These tiny flashes, this fire, appear deep inside your body. And around you, the ring of the scanner listens. It detects the twin beams of light, records their paths, and builds a map. A picture made not of surface, but of process. Not a photograph of your body, but a portrait of your body's story. It's astonishing, really. Antimatter, something born in the heart of stars, something once only imagined in theory. Now helping to detect illness, to trace life, to diagnose. Something so rare, so hard to create, so quick to disappear. And yet here it becomes useful, even gentle. In a PET scan, you're not just being examined. You're participating in a cosmic dance. The machinery doesn't just look at you. It listens to how matter and antimatter touch and disappear. Captures the moment they meet, the instant they become light, and it translates that light into healing knowledge. That knowledge helps doctors see things they couldn't otherwise. A tumor that drinks sugar more eagerly than healthy tissue. A part of the heart that's failing to move. A section of brain that pulses in silence. The tracer goes where it's needed, and the positrons do their quiet work. Annihilation as revelation. Strange to think about. Antimatter, which in the universe is so fleeting, so forbidden, becomes here, a tool of care. Inside a human body, what could have destroyed instead becomes a light that heals. And it's not just in one place. Around the world, thousands of PET scans are performed every day. Which means that somewhere, right now, someone else is lying in that soft white ring, unknowingly holding antimatter in their bloodstream, unknowingly becoming a place where science turns inward, not toward the stars, but toward the self. You begin to understand something quiet and powerful. Science is not just a search outward. It's also a return inward, into bodies, into hearts, into minds, into the stories we carry in tissue and breath. And so, as the machine finishes, as the table slides gently back into the room, as a technician helps you sit up, you're left with more than an image. You're left with a memory, That light came from within you, that the cosmos touched you, that you held for just a moment the fire of the universe inside. Antimatter may be rare, but you've met it now. Not in a distant galaxy, not in a high-energy collider, but in a place meant for healing, in a machine designed to listen, in the space between cells and silence. And maybe, as you leave the room and walk back down the clean hallway, you carry that knowing with you, that even the most extreme mysteries of the cosmos can find a home in care, in medicine, in you. Because sometimes, the deepest science isn't about distant stars or violent collisions. Sometimes it's about how light finds its way into dark places, how vanishing becomes seeing, how the universe, with all its strangeness, gently enters the body and stays for just a moment. And perhaps, as you pause near the exit, a new question rises quietly in your chest. If light can bloom from such a tiny touch, what else might be hidden inside the body, waiting to shine? You are floating again, not in water this time, but in thought. A thought so small it hums like the space between atoms. It's a quiet question, delicate as a whisper pressed into the future. What if the key to reaching the stars has already passed through our fingertips? You picture a spark, not one of firewood or friction, but of something purer. A meeting, a reunion, a particle and its mirror twin touching for the briefest breath, and vanishing in a bloom of energy. Annihilation, not in anger, but in completion. It's this, you learn, that may one day move ships between worlds. You imagine a spacecraft, sleek as a silver quill, poised against the dark canvas of space. Not pushed by steam or fuel, not driven by chemical fire, but powered by the very disappearance of matter. Antimatter engines. The term alone feels like poetry, the kind that glows softly in the dark. You begin to sense it, the difference between old engines and new dreams. Chemical rockets, powerful yet clumsy, burn fast and heavy. Their flames gulp through tons of fuel just to kiss the edge of orbit. But antimatter, a single gram contains more energy than a nuclear bomb. A thimbleful could take us to Mars. A spoonful, perhaps, to the stars. Your thoughts drift to equations, to Einstein's E equals mc squared, and you feel the weight of it now. Mass turned to pure energy, not just broken or burned, but transformed. This is not alchemy. This is physics, bold and silent, waiting patiently beneath our questions. But dreams like this come with shadows. You walk softly through a thought experiment lab. Scientists in clean suits and helmets whisper to machines that hum like distant bees. Here, antimatter is born not in great quantities, but in sparks, fleeting flickers, coaxed into being in vast machines like the Large Hadron Collider. Each positron and antiproton, a pearl balanced on the edge of existence. The difficulty is not creating it. We already do. The true test is holding it. You remember the rule. Matter and antimatter cannot touch. Like forbidden lovers, their contact is fatal, not to them but to the space around them. In a spacecraft engine, such contact must be orchestrated perfectly. A chamber of vacuum, magnetic traps to cradle the antimatter like fireflies in a glass jar. Every atom must be persuaded not to flee or to collide too soon. So you imagine the engine of the future as a kind of dance. Antimatter is not poured like gasoline. It is guided one particle at a time to meet its match. Each union, each annihilation, releases energy not wildly but precisely. Enough to bend space, to push a craft faster than ever before. Not just fast, but perhaps one day relativistic. Near the speed of light. The kind of speed that makes time slow and stars blur. You feel it in your bones, the risk, the grace, the need for care. Such engines would not roar. They would hum, whispering the music of physics across the vacuum of space. They would demand patience, elegance, control. You float deeper into the thought. How would we build such ships? Not of steel, but of materials that don't yet exist. Not launched from Earth, but built in orbit, where gravity does not scold every ambition. Perhaps whole factories in space, assembling crafts like seeds, each one bearing a speck of antimatter at its core. You think of the fuel tanks, not metal drums but magnetic bottles, traps that never touch their contents. You imagine engineers walking quietly beside containment pods that glow with unseen power. Every step a prayer of precision, every calibration a poem of survival. And still the energy. So much energy from so little mass. The efficiency is staggering. Chemical rockets convert only a fraction of their fuel's energy into thrust. But antimatter converts nearly all of it. Perfect trade, mass for movement, presence for possibility. You think about what it would mean. Human journeys to Jupiter in weeks. Expeditions to the Oort cloud. Missions launched not with fire but with light. And yet, there's a hush beneath your thoughts. Sense of waiting. Because right now, the cost of antimatter is beyond belief. A single gram would take trillions of dollars and years of effort to produce. It flickers and dies before it can be used. We are learning to make it, but not yet to hold it. Not yet to tame its wild perfection. But dreams move faster than progress. And the dream of antimatter propulsion refuses to fade. Physicists still sketch engine designs in quiet corners of labs. Concepts like beamed core rockets and magnetic nozzles flutter like blueprints on stardust. You feel the paradox now. The most powerful engine we've ever imagined, built on the most fragile balance. Containment fields thinner than spider silk. Timing that must never tremble. One mistake and the fire turns against us. So you wonder, maybe the future of antimatter propulsion is not just about fuel. Maybe it's about trust. About learning how to cradle danger with reverence. About learning to build not just machines but wisdom. You drift again, this time not forward but inward. You imagine the journey. A ship leaving Earth behind, engines humming softly with every annihilation. Behind the ship, a pale trail of radiation glows briefly, then fades. Ahead only silence, stars slowly shifting in the window. And in that silence, a question forms. What happens if you go faster? What happens if your ship edges ever closer to the speed of light? Where time itself bends and clocks slow and mass increases? What happens to space? When speed becomes extreme, you begin to sense a stretching, a warping. The path ahead is no longer a straight line. Last lines. As you drift toward the stars, you feel time ripple around you, soft and strange like wind in deep water. Could speed become a doorway? Could acceleration itself bend space, or perhaps fold it? There, just ahead, another mystery waits, shaped like a paradox. The stars do not shout, they murmur. And in those murmurs, if you listen gently enough, you begin to wonder, not just what is there, but what is missing. You drift in the quiet dark, through the grand hallways of the universe. Here, galaxies whirl like silent clocks, and between them, space wide enough to lose entire empires of matter. Your ship, if it is a ship, hums without noise. It is made of thought and wonder, propelled by questions that never fully rest. And tonight your question is a soft one. Where might antimatter be hiding? Not just a particle here, a flash there, but entire islands, continents, oceans of it. Could there be galaxies made not of atoms, but their mirrored twins, antimatter galaxies, drifting just like ours? It is not a childish thought. No, the physics permits it. The laws are symmetric, remember. An electron has its twin, the positron. A proton its quiet adversary, the antiproton. They are reflections, opposites, yet bound by the same dances of charge and spin. If they touch, they vanish in a shimmer of energy, like two notes canceling into silence. But what if they never touch? What if antimatter lives, far apart, never mingling with our kind of matter? You pass a spiral galaxy, arms unfurled like a dancer's sleeves. Billions of suns, countless planets, all made of matter. You know this because if it weren't, if even a cloud of antimatter brushed against it, the clash would announce itself in the sky. Gamma rays, fierce and bright, an annihilation flash. But the sky is quiet. Mostly. You tune your senses. There are whispers, tiny flickers of gamma radiation. A positron meets an electron somewhere. A star sheds particles in a violent sneeze. A black hole churns space, spitting out matter and antimatter alike. But nothing large. Nothing like an antimatter moon. Or a city. Or a sea. And yet you keep asking, could we miss it? Could it be far, far beyond, across a cosmic border we haven't crossed? You remember the early fire, the Big Bang. The universe born in blinding symmetry. Matter and antimatter were created in equal measure, dancing together, locked in a blazing waltz. But the moment cooled, and somehow one type stayed. Why? Where did all the antimatter go? Was it destroyed? Or did it flee? You glide through the vast nothing between galaxy clusters, that black stretch too far for even light to cross quickly. Out here, there are places where nothing has spoken for billions of years. If you were antimatter, wanting to survive, wouldn't you hide here? In the cold, in the silence, far from stars and their noisy outbursts. You picture it. An antimatter galaxy, silent and shy. Its suns burn just like ours, but they are made of inverted pieces. Its planets orbit in calm regularity, perhaps with mountains, with ice caps, with winds. But everything reversed. Every atom, every nucleus, an echo instead of a note. And you, made of matter, can never visit. Not safely. Not without unraveling. You'd be a spark in their world, a flame that burns itself to ash. And they, too, could never visit you. There are those who've looked. Our telescopes, sensitive to gamma light, have scanned the sky for signs of clash. A comet of antimatter colliding with a matter-rich atmosphere would light up in brilliant protest. But we've found no such signs. No large events. Oh, maybe the scale is wrong. Maybe they are out there too far, too cautious. Maybe their galaxies keep to themselves, like quiet monks in the monasteries of the cosmos. You float near a supernova remnant. Its glowing edges curl like petals. Here, perhaps, the creation of both matter and antimatter once unfolded. But the residue favors one side. Always one side. And yet, the symmetry of physics still holds. Our equations are fair. Nature seems to respect the rules. So why doesn't the sky? Could the answer lie in space too warped for us to see straight? A region bent around a black hole, hiding its truths behind event horizons. Or maybe the antimatter hides in forms we haven't yet imagined. Could it be in dark plasma? In clouds so diffuse we mistake them for absence? What if it hides not in space, but in time? You exhale, if that's what this movement is, and think how long the search has lasted, and how long it will go on. Maybe we'll never find an antimatter world. Maybe we'll just keep listening, waiting for a voice from across the border. Or maybe one day, a beam of light will reach us, one that shouldn't exist. A signature not of this side but the other, and in it a message. Or here. You turn toward a quiet patch of sky. It looks empty, but the quiet often lies. The universe has always hidden its boldest ideas in the calmest corners. So you keep watching. Not for what burns, but for what doesn't. Not for what screams, but for what whispers. You drift onward between galaxies like a thought between dreams. Not knowing where the antimatter went, but knowing the question is the path. And just as your mind begins to settle, another idea stirs. Quieter, deeper. What if something older still is hiding? Not particles or galaxies, but the very pattern behind it all. Something beyond the mirror. Something beneath the symmetry. Certainly. Below is your meditative bedtime narration chapter. You float again, suspended in the quiet dark. The stars hum softly around you, like distant thoughts flickering behind closed eyes. The galaxies, scattered and luminous, drift past, slow lanterns in an infinite dusk. You're not searching now. You are listening. The question is still there. It always has been. Why is there something rather than nothing? Does not shout. It never has. It waits, patient, eternal, like a ripple from the beginning, still echoing through everything. You recall the early chapters of this journey. Quarks and leptons born in brilliance. Forces folding into form. Antimatter arriving with mirror hands, vanishing in sparks. Laws obeyed with uncanny precision. And yet, the tiniest imbalance. Enough to let matter linger. Enough to let you exist. But why? Why didn't it all cancel out? Light and anti-light, kiss and goodbye. You wonder if the question is the real shape of the universe, the curve that bends every atom and orbit and thought. Not the answer, but the yearning itself. And so, tonight, you drift through possibilities like a quiet detective in the dreamscape of the cosmos. Maybe you imagine the asymmetry was seated in the rules themselves. A subtle preference like a coin that flips, not quite fair. The laws of physics whispering, let one side remain. In this version, the universe was never even. It leaned from the beginning, gently biased toward being. Or perhaps it was a chance, a flicker of quantum randomness like a breeze that nudged a particle one way instead of the other. You picture it. The early universe, balanced on the tip of a pin, and one stray fluctuation breaks the symmetry. Not on purpose, not design, just the way it fell. You feel the difference between these answers, though they both end with you, breathing, wondering. But then your thoughts drift further, deeper, past explanation and into meaning. You remember what it felt like in the antimatter world, imagined or real, where everything reversed. The same physics, the same beauty, but no matter, no life, no questions asked. That mirror world might still be out there, untouchable. But it is quiet, lone. No minds to marvel at the stars. No you to float and feel. So maybe the real question is not why matter, but why mind? You close your eyes and let the thought unfurl. Mind, this strange flowering of matter. Able to remember, to wonder, to love. It is not enough that particles exist. They also arrange into awareness, into stories, into you. You who listens when the universe asks something wordless and wide. And in this moment, it feels like maybe the question is more important than the answer. That the act of asking, of caring, is the rarest thing of all. The stars do not know they shine. But you do. The atoms in your chest once danced in fire, then darkness, then cells and breath. They do not choose. But you do. And so perhaps the universe needs minds like yours. Soft, fragile minds that can hold the question gently without forcing an answer. You picture yourself now, not just drifting through space, but floating through wonder. A vessel for curiosity. Container for awe. You are the question embodied. Not a scientist in a lab coat scribbling equations, but a traveler in twilight, barefoot on starlight, gathering the mystery like petals in your palms. You turn slowly in the void. Around you, the galaxies spin, unconcerned. They do not need meaning. But you do. So you give it. You give the universe its meaning by noticing, by naming, by loving it even as it refuses to explain itself. You smile. Not because you've solved anything, but because the question is beautiful and you are part of it. The universe asks, not in words but in stars and silence. And you answer not in logic but in longing. That may be enough. Still your mind wanders one step further. If this universe asks a question, could there be others? Universes that never asked. Universes without imbalance, without thought, without anything to listen. Silent perfect voids. But this one, your home, it broke the symmetry. Stumbled toward excess. It risked chaos. It made just enough mistake to become magnificent. You float, full of gratitude for the flaw that made you possible. And yet the question lingers, elusive as ever. Why something? Why anything? You know you'll never pin it down. And strangely that comforts you. 'Cause maybe the answer is not a sentence but a song. Not a conclusion but a process. Maybe the universe doesn't tell stories. It is a story. One you are inside, one you help write just by wondering. So you drift, pen in hand, heart wide open, waiting for the next chapter to begin. A chapter not about